In this video, you'll discover the top things you need to do in order to detox your fatty liver. There's no doubt that millions of people suffer from fatty liver. Now, when you find out that you have fatty liver, in many cases, people get a little bit confused. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to reverse this problem? And yes, this is a problem that is completely reversible. So that's why in this video, I'm going to give you action steps that you can implement today in order to start reversing a fatty liver, start detoxing the liver. And the thing is too about this is very important to understand is that this is a reversible problem, but if you do nothing about it, it can lead to devastating consequences. So it's so important to take action, and I'm going to give you the steps that you need to implement today. So stick around to the end of this video, but before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski and welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, it is a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our notification community, and I'm going to help you excel your health and your life. Let's go ahead and talk about one of the first things that you can start doing, because remember, I want to give you action steps that by the end of this video, you're ready to implement them and you're already in the process of reversing this fatty liver. So the first thing that you need to do is remove grains. Now, this is very different than the conventional wisdom that you're going to get at your local doctor's office. In many cases, what they'll actually tell you to do is increase your consumption of good quality whole grains, but that's not what we want to do here. When we're talking about reversing the fatty liver, it's very important to reverse this utilizing food, and really looking to food as the number one thing that you can do in order to start taking action steps. Now, grains, of course, are not going to be part of a good, healthy reversal plan of the fatty liver. And so we want to start removing them. We want to remove all the grains like corn, wheat, soy, rice, oats, barley. All the different grains out there are very important to just take out of your diet right now, because here's the deal, is if you have fatty liver, then you also likely have an insulin resistance problem. Like, they're going to be very much correlated. And when you have these issues, the way that your metabolism is functioning, when you go and start breaking down the grains, they're going to break down its sugar, they're going to spike your blood glucose, they're going to spike your insulin levels, and that's not something we want to have happen at this time. Now, another reason that is very important to go and start avoiding grains is because many of these grains up here you're going to get from genetically modified sources, okay? These are genetically modified sources we don't want to be consuming. And then the last reason here is because many of these are highly inflammatory. Think of wheat, for instance, has gluten in it. That gluten is going to be highly inflammatory, and we're trying to not only reduce inflammation, but also reduce consuming anything that is going to turn to sugar in our body and even promote that fatty liver problem. So remove grains completely from your diet, and that's going to be one of the number one action steps that you can follow in order to start reversing this problem today. Let's talk about the next thing, is that's removing bad fats, okay? These bad fats are highly inflammatory. They're rich in omega-6, too many omega-6s in them, which are going to further promote the inflammation. And then, of course, these are bad fats that are going to promote the fatty liver fat deposits. So we have to make sure that we're removing them. Corn oil is one that we see all the time. Soybean oil, canola oil, margarine, sunflower oil, peanut oil, cottonseed oil. These are all really bad fats. Remove them completely altogether. Remember that a lot of packaged foods in stores are using these because these are very inexpensive oils to put into food. So they want to increase profit margins, so they use these. If you go to pretty much any restaurant where they're serving up fried food, it's going to be fried in these kinds of oils because, once again, they're cheap, but they are also not good for you, and they're highly inflammatory. We want to make sure that we're sticking to good fats, okay? Because good fats have proven to be very beneficial. When we think of good fats, we're thinking of fats like butter, olive oil, coconut oil. We also want to use fats like ghee. I mean, these are all really good fats that can be utilized in order to start reversing fatty liver. So number one is cut out the grains. Number two is cut out the bad fats, and these different bad fats right here can all be replaced by good healthy fats. It's not about cutting out fats 100% altogether. It's just about cutting out the bad ones and replacing them with the good ones. So cut these out, and let's move to the next big thing you have to do, and that's removing sugar. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is going to be one of the toughest ones that you're going to face, because if you're someone who has fatty liver, once again, you got there because of insulin resistance, you're consuming a lot of sugar, a lot of unhealthy foods, and unfortunately, the sugar is one of the things that is really hard for a lot of people to remove. I mean, whether it's someone who likes to drink a lot of soda, whether you're somebody who likes to have candy, or maybe that sweet snack after a meal, I mean, this is something that is highly addictive. And unfortunately, when you go to try to remove sugar, it's sitting in the back of your brain tormenting you, telling you, hey, I want to consume more sugar. And so unfortunately, your body's drawn to it because sugar acts like a drug on the body. Now, here's the next reason that sugar is very difficult to remove is because it is in so many different forms. There's over 56 different names in which you will find sugar. So I'm going to name a couple of them here, and we're going to talk about some of these for practical purposes, just a little bit of discussion here around them. But understand that sugar comes in many forms. You can go on the internet, you can look up all the different forms of sugar, and that way you can understand when you're reading the labels that you need to avoid these, okay? Sucrose is a big one that we're going to find that we have to avoid. That's your simple table sugar. Now, high fructose corn syrup is an absolute must to make sure that you're avoiding during this time. Why is this? Well, first of all, high fructose corn syrup is in like everything, it seems anymore, simply because it's a very inexpensive sugar. But the problem with high fructose corn syrup is it has to be processed mostly in the liver. When we think of like sucrose, your simple table sugar, that can be processed by almost every cell in the body. But high fructose corn syrup has to be processed mostly in the liver, and as a result, it's very damaging to the liver, and it really promotes fatty liver deposits and fatty liver deposits in any organ system, really. So we have to make sure that we are avoiding this altogether. Like I said, if you think of maybe a soda, for instance, a soda is going to be one of those prime beverages or things that people are consuming that are going to be loaded with that high fructose corn syrup. There's no fiber in there. There's no nutrient density in there. It's just a load of high fructose corn syrup, and that is probably one of the worst situations you can think of when trying to reverse a fatty liver. Beet sugar, we have to avoid stuff like that, and the reason for that is because that's going to come from mostly GMO sources, which is going to be really terrible for you, and we want to make sure we avoid that. Agave nectar. Now, I'm putting that on there simply because a lot of people would perceive that as to being a healthier form of sugar. And unfortunately, sugar is sugar in this case. When we're talking about insulin resistance, when we're talking about removing the fatty liver problem, we're really having to remove all sugar altogether, because every bit of sugar, no matter whether it's considered to be healthy or unhealthy, sugar at this point is going to be damaging to this process. So removing agave nectar is a must. Cane sugar, we want to make sure we're removing that. Once again, many cases looked at as a healthier form of sugar. You know, if you were to go to a restaurant and they had sugar packets for the coffee, they may have white sugar, but then they have the cane sugar and it's like, oh, that's the healthy one. No, not really. So cane sugar, remove that. Fruit juice is another one that we have to make sure that we're removing as well. Now, when we think of fruit juice, we think, oh, it's going to boost our immune system and all that vitamin C in there. It's so healthy. Not so much, simply because that fruit juice is loaded with fructose. That fructose is that form of sugar that's going to be highly processed in our liver. And that is not healthy for us during this time, as we've discussed. And so we have to make sure we remove the fruit juice. If you want to have some fruit, have a couple pieces of fruit, but we do not want to go in and consume a whole bunch of fruit juice during this time. Honey is another one that we need to remove. Now, once again, our focus here is removing all the different sugars. I'm just focusing on some of these for conversation purposes. Now, honey is also considered a superfood. I understand there's so many benefits it has to offer, but during this time, we want to remove honey because it is going to spike blood sugar. It is going to spike insulin levels, and that's not what we want to accomplish here. So we have to make sure that we're removing these. Now, let's talk about exercise. Now, this is another one that a lot of people struggle with, okay? I work with patients. I know the struggles. And so when you see exercise, it's something that you're like, well, I've never exercised in my life. You know, I'm not into it. I don't understand it. And you want to run from it. I get it, right? But when it comes to exercise, it's so important to make sure that you're doing it in order to reverse problems like insulin resistance and fatty liver. I wanted to show you this picture here. This is a cross-section of a healthy liver. This is what it looks like. And this is a cross-section of a fatty liver. And we can see all the different fat deposits in here. It's, you know, we can see how devastating this can be. And so this is, you know, the unhealthy one we're trying to reverse, and exercise is proven to really do just that. Let's talk about a couple studies here. Now, when we look at exercise, there was one study where they took 28 patients over a 12-week period, and they had them do high-intensity interval training. Now, high-intensity interval training is a form of training that you do short duration, but high intensity. So it might be like a 20-minute workout that is just, you know, it's really kicking your butt. You're working really hard. You're sweating. And by the time you're done, you're exhausted. And so that's that kind of exercise, high-intensity interval training. And what they found is over that 12-week 12-week period, they had a 39% decrease in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And what they also found is that their HbA1c, the blood sugar test that they did on them, what they found is the HbA1c actually dropped too. So that's really powerful, okay? So that's high intensity interval training. And let's go ahead and talk about the next type of training, and then we'll circle back as to why the HIIT is actually more relevant here. So they did another study where they took 82 patients. They had them do resistance training, okay? That's like, they were doing pull-ups, they were doing push-ups, they were doing bench press, leg presses. They were in the gym lifting weights, basically. And they did this over a 3-month period, and they found that it decreased hepatic fat, which is very positive, meaning that it decreased fatty liver, and it also improved body composition, so they're able to lose fat on the body and go in and make sure that they helped improve their fatty liver, okay? So basically what we find is that exercise is a must during this time. It's really important to do. Now, another thing that you can actually do in order to really help skyrocket the results of reversing fatty liver is use different nutrients. And what I did is a really powerful video on the different nutrients you can take in order to reverse fatty liver. I'll put a link in the description below as well. Now, when we look at both of these forms of workouts, there's something we have to consider, is that the high intensity interval training, when they, compared that to resistance training, when they compared that to long distance running or whatever it was, the high intensity interval training saw some of the best results. Okay, so we want to make sure that we take this highly into consideration. If you're not familiar with how to do high intensity interval training, I'll put a link in the description below. And by the way, when I look at, a topic like, reversing fatty liver and doing this fatty liver detox, this is a starter conversation. This is the action steps that you can take today in order to start reversing this problem. However, there's a lot more other conversations we can have around it, right? Like proper nutrients you can take, proper foods you can eat, the best form of exercise. I'm going to put all that in the description below so you can keep learning about this process and you can keep educating yourself, because if you just follow this information that I'm giving you here, you will, beyond a shadow of a doubt, will reverse fatty liver and drastically improve your health, okay? Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends, because please, they need this information too. And then also be sure to check out this video over here on the best exercise to do for insulin resistance. You can be creative in the way that you go about making these little high intensity workouts and routines up. And so you can really choose whatever exercises you want